Hey folks, it's Ray, Rainmaker.com here, and today I've got a bit of a review and walkthrough and features explainer of the new Garmin Lily watch. Now there's actually two additions to the Garmin Lily watch. There is the Sport and the Classic. The Sport one has a silicone band, costs $199, and the Classic has a leather band, a genuine leather band, and it costs $249. Now the goal for this video is basically to walk through all of the features, kind of a hands-on sort of thing, and then while I'm doing that, talk through the experiences using the watch for the last while, along with the experiences of my wife, who is also using another watch as well. And I've actually got two of them here. I've got the Classic one here, and then I've got the Sport one right there. I'll explain why in a second. It's decapitated, but don't worry, it'll make sense. So first thing to know about the Lily is it's really, really darn small. It's also really lightweight. If I take this right here and put it on the scale that you can't see, it comes in at 24 grams. But the other thing is it's super small compared to Garmin's other watches. So on this lineup right here, I've got the Vivo Active 4S. S is the smaller edition. I then have the Fenix 6S Pro. So again, the smallest edition of the Fenix 6S series. And then I have the Garmin Venue on the right-hand side. And you can see it's super, super small. It's also pretty darn thin too. If I put these two side by side, you can see it's definitely thinner as well there. But let's go ahead and get these out of the way and start talking features. But before we do that, I'm going to bring this other one up here. And this is the Classic one. And you'll see I took the top off. And the reason is that the bands are detachable. You've got this little toolkit that you can buy as part of another accessory band. There we go. And this allows me to take off the band that it came with. Not that one. This one right here, you can see this. And it has this basically bolt that goes through it. There we go. And a little screw that attaches like that. Move these down so you can see them a little bit better. And it just simply threads through there. Now, I wouldn't say it's the easiest thing to take and remove, so you wouldn't want to do this like on the daily basis. Unlike some of the other watches, like for example, the, there we go, right here, the Fenix 6 that has this, quick release thing that you just pop off. There we go. You'll see it just pops off and then snaps back on again. You're good to go. This takes like a minute of finagling to get it right. The two watches are identical otherwise between the Classic and the Sport. There's no differences functionality wise. It's just the band itself. I'm also going to preface that you probably see me mistouch on the screen a bit, and that's mostly because usually you do it on your wrist. I'm trying to do it up here for the camera without blocking the camera. Also, my fingers are really big and this screen is really small, so it's probably going to happen a little bit more than it would normally for a smaller female when you're on your wrist, or even myself using it on my wrist, it tends to work a little better than the camera. So as you can see off the top of the bat, the screen is off. It's not an always on display, which means that it's going to turn on when you raise your wrist up like this, and hopefully detects that wrist raise, and it turns the screen on. And the same is true of this other one as well. When I tap them or touch them, then you go ahead and it turns the display on as well. Now the one challenge I've seen here is that wrist raise detection isn't great. It's not horrible, but it's definitely not like best in class. Best in class is like Apple Watch and then Fitbit and kind of Samsung below that. And then there's Garmin. Because most of Garmin's other watches are always on. Like these are always on type watches when they're charged up anyways. So it's something they haven't really perfected. And that's probably like my chief complaint about this watch. Just right out of the gate, both myself and my wife would say that the wrist raise is just not good and kind of like takes away from some of the watch. And maybe get used to that over time. I tried adjusting sensitivity settings. Didn't really make much of a difference. But that's like my only real complaint. So if you get past that, then we'll talk about the rest of the watch. Also, what's notable is when the display is not on, that pattern is still displayed there. You can see that right there. And as soon as I tap this display, it comes back on there. Just get this back on. And from an outside viewing standpoint, this is no problem at all to see outside in bright sun. Like I was really surprised because in some of the past Garmin Vivo Move series watches, I found it completely useless and totally like disappears outside. This is no problem at all in sun. So I'm pretty happy there. So on this first screen right there, this is the watch face. There we go. The watch face, you can change the watch face. You'll see it's a little bit different on my wife's one right here. There you go. Actually, she got the same watch face right now. But you can change that if you want to in the settings. And as I touch this, it'll change the different metrics. So you can see the weather right there, the battery left on this watch, my steps, my current heart rate. The heart rate will use the optical sensor on the back right there. So if I put my finger on this for a second, it should detect that and turn on that green sensor there. There we go, just like that. And that sensor is going to go ahead and measure your heart rate 24/7 as well as on workouts. And then if you turn on pulse oximetry, it'll also measure your pulse ox, your SpO2 values overnight. That does burn the battery considerably more though, so just keep that in mind. So back on the screen right here, I can swipe left and right to go through the widgets. You can see this first one is called My Day, showing my steps, my intensity minutes. There we go. And my calories for the day. My intensity minutes are super high because I had a bunch of different Garmin devices recording at once, but you can see that there. And then the health stats. So I've got heart rate, stress, and body battery. All of these are dependent on my heart rate on this optical sensor on the back right there. And I find them pretty good. This next one right here is a notification on my calendar that just popped up, reminding me to bring home some light bulbs for the kitchen. So that's on there. I can go ahead and just tap that to get out of it by pressing this bottom little button. So this little circle right here is like a touch button. It's not a real button, it's just where you should be touching to go ahead and move through to some of the menus. So it's separate from the upper portion of the screen there. So tap this to get back on. We'll go through some of these more widgets. We got the calendar again. We have the weather. I can tap that to get more information about the next couple of days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Again, the little button in the back bottom here to go to the next or go back. I can do hydration right here. So I can track my hydration. I can define what's considered a cup and then add to that. And so if I do this right there, you can see it's increasing this on the left-hand side as I go around for my hydration tracking of the day. Swiping again, body battery. Body battery is like, remember the old Street Fighter game way back when? Like it's your energy levels for the day. And I find it pretty darn good actually at measuring how I feel over the course of the day. It's not perfect, like there's some edge cases, but in general it kind of measures that over the course of time. And if I put the screenshot right here, you'll see what it looks like in the app itself over the course of the day. Swiping again, I've got my current heart rate. There's another smartphone notification popping in, so I'll get out of that. And if I tap this, I can see my heart rate over the last 4 hours. So you can see that's a workout I did, a Peloton ride, and then after that, it's been pretty calm since then. So going back, swiping again, there's my steps for the day. I can tap this to see steps for the last 7 days. And each of these widgets, you can go ahead and dive into more information by just simply tapping it. Here is my breathing rate, and you can see the last 7 days as well. Respiration rate, it's also called, and you'll just be able to track that over time. And this is one of those metrics that people have been looking at from a COVID-19 standpoint to see a large spike, much more significant than going from 13 to 16, but like from 13 to 18 or 20 is potentially an indicator of you being sick. Not necessarily COVID, but just anything in general there. So swiping through that again, I've got stress tracking, and then these are smartphone notifications that have popped up. And I can go to Twitter, etc. Anything you define on your phone, and then go back again, and we're back to the beginning. And that's the widgets there. You can customize these. So for example, if you're a woman and you're defined as a woman in the Garmin Connect app, then you'll go ahead and also have female health tracking. That includes menstrual cycle as well as pregnancy tracking in there. Since I am not a female, it's not on my app, it's not something I can enable. My wife has it there, but she didn't really use it too much, or all actually, this particular time around. Okay, going deeper into the menu a little bit more, one thing to mention, there are no other buttons on the side of this or anything like that. Like this is it. It's all touchscreen only. So this bottom button again, we crack that open, and this is where I can access activities. So I can do a run, etc. We'll get to that in just a second. I can change my watch face here. As I talked about earlier, some of the different watch faces are right there. You can see them. You can't download Garmin Connect IQ watch faces, but you can at least pick from some of these. Here's the clocks. So these are things like alarms, timer, stopwatch, just sort of the basic kind of stopwatchy type features that you have on the watches. Settings is where I can change hydration alert. I can look at my VO2 max. This is based on primarily running data and primarily high intensity workouts. So I've been doing mostly indoor cycling workouts the last couple weeks, and I've got some runs, but they're usually a little bit easier. So this will adjust more accurately once I get more runs that are high intensity over kind of longer period of time, like 3 to 4 weeks or so. Going back, I've got wrist heart rate. One thing that's notable and kind of a disappointment here, though, is it doesn't broadcast your heart rate from the watch. Almost all of Garmin's other watches, in fact, all of Garmin's other watches do that. This is really the first one that doesn't. And that's disappointing. Like I couldn't pair it to the Peloton Bike, for example, to get my heart rate on that. So something I would have liked to have seen. Inversely, you can't pair it to a heart rate strap either, which was another kind of rarity in Garmin's lineup. There's only one other device that doesn't work that way as well, but just keep that in mind. Though the heart rate accuracy of this is pretty good. I dive into heart rate accuracy pretty deep in my written review, which you can check out down in the description at the bottom there. Also, if you're finding this video interesting or useful, just simply whack that like button at the bottom. It really helps out this video and the channel quite a bit. Here's where I can change my phone settings, and I go into system to get things like change the brightness and alert vibration levels, as well as the gesture mode. In other words, right now I've turned it off for this so it doesn't mess up this particular video, but normally I have it on the high sensitivity, try it on low sensitivity, and the timeout of the screen. And those things will impact your battery life. So the battery life is claimed at 5 days. In my case, I'm seeing like 2.5 to 4 days, but I've got things that are turned on for more battery burn, like the longer timeouts and a gesture, higher sensitivity, etc. So your mileage will vary a bit there. So going on back here, there we go. So we talked about settings, and we'll go into activities. Now, these activities are defined on the Garmin Connect app. You can choose up to 7 different activities. So if I just bring my phone over here, so you can see these activities that are listed here, and there's 7 ones right there that I can choose to be active on the device at any point in time, and I can edit these, but I cannot take walk or run out. These are always on there, and these other ones that listed right there, I can move them up. So I could take out, for example, breath work and put instead pool swim, and then click done. And at that point, I can change the options for these particular sports. So in run, for example, I can go into that and I can change distance alerts. So I can have heart rate, time, distance, or cadence, or sorry, calorie alerts. I can turn those on or off, and you can see those. And those are just kind of repetitive reminders. So if I had to set a distance alert for every 5K, it would remind me every 5K. The same for time alert, which is different than auto lap. So if I go to auto lap back here, you'll see that's on, and it's just simply set for every 1 mile or every 1 kilometer, depending on which setting you have defined for your device. Meanwhile, down on data fields here, I can customize data fields on one data page and then turn off the heart rate gauge, a music control screen for my phone. There's no music on this device itself, or the watch face or clock face, if you will. So you'll see up here on this one data screen, though, I can choose 2 data pages, and then the timer page stays static. So I can change the top one. I can go, for example, from pace to heart rate if I want to, and then the bottom I can change from distance to pace. And those are the only fields that are offered there. So fairly basic. So going on back here, you can see that this will sync the next time it connects to my phone, or to the watch, sorry. I can also go and I can change some of the activity tracking things as well. So for example, I can turn on or off pulse ox, which will again burn the battery more, but give me SpO2 readings at night. And there's Move IQ, which will automatically create activities on your calendar for runs or walks, for example, without you having to press anything. These are different, though, than like a fully timed activity, which is what's listed down there below for auto activity start. So in this case, if you went out for a run, after a minute of running, it would actually start a true activity. So it's a little bit different than those. So going back again here, a couple of quick things in the settings option for the device itself. You can see those widgets are all customizable right here. These are the widgets I mentioned earlier on. So I can add the music controls, for example, to control music on my phone. And the display options here, I can change basically the same settings that I had on the watch itself. Now, there is no Garmin Pay on here, so no contactless payments, nor is, again, there any music storage on itself. Now, finally, let's dive into the actual workout modes. So we'll tap this to the bottom there to open up the menu, activities. You can see the ones that I'd set up. Now, if I go into cardio, for example, I would just double tap to start this, but I want to show you the options first. So go to the top there. You can see I can define the alerts again, so I can do heart rate, time, or calories. Because this isn't going anywhere, I'm not going to have any distance options. So this is like if I was doing just an indoor workout. For example, on the Peloton Bike, there is no indoor spin sport mode option. So I just used cardio instead, which worked fine. So I wouldn't get distance alerts on that. Going back, I can turn on intervals though, and this allows me, if I tap that there, to set an active time or an rest time. It just simply repeats this over and over again. But what's somewhat curious about this, if I go to running here, come on, get back again, and choose run as my sport. At this point, it's going to ask for my phone to utilize a GPS on this. And the way it works, there is no GPS in Lily itself. Instead, it's going to go ahead and use your phone's GPS. Fitbit calls it connected GPS. Garmin doesn't really have a branding for it, but it's the same kind of concept there. But I found that this happens a lot, and it just doesn't connect very well. And I've got to like toggle the permissions on and off every day. It seems to like save it for the day, and then the next day it's over again. The same was happening with my wife as well, and kind of frustrating. So we'll escape out of that for the moment. Up in the settings here, though, there is no interval option for running, which is kind of funny because that's probably the one place you'd actually want it. But you can see the phone GPS option there, auto lap and alerts just like before, except alerts now here we've got the distance alert. Now, when it does use phone GPS, it'll go ahead and keep the GPS track for afterwards. So when it uploads to Strava or any site like that, you'll see it. But you don't have to have phone GPS. I can go running just like this right now, and it'll go ahead and still track my distance and pace using the accelerometer in it, and you're gonna get your heart rate from the sensor on the back of it. So if I were to double tap to start this right now and pretend I go to running, you'll see right there, I've got my pace per kilometer in this case, or you can change it to pace in miles as well. Right now, it's just what I happen to have set to. Heart rate at the top, and then the time there. Remember, these are the data fields that I defined a little bit earlier on. I can swipe to the right to see my current heart rate gauge, swipe again to get back to the same page right here we just showed a second ago. Now, if we look at some shots from outside, you'll see I've got it configured a little bit different there, but you can actually see as I'm running outside that pace gauge changing, as well as the heart rate gauge changing as I'm going. The one catch I found though with running with it, with that particular coat that you see there, is a coat would go over the top of the display. It would actually double tap it and it would stop it. It would pause it, which was sort of frustrating. I asked Garmin if there's any way to lock the screen while in a workout, and there unfortunately isn't. So that's something they're looking at doing, but I ended up having to just pull my coat up a little bit so it wouldn't ever touch the watch itself, because as soon as I touched it, it would tend to pause it, and obviously I wouldn't have tracking my workout anymore. Once you're done with your workout, you get just a very brief data page showing a summary of the workout, just 4 metrics, super simple. But over on Garmin Connect Mobile itself, or Garmin Connect, the site, the app, whatever you want to choose there, you can see the full details for your workout. So this is my workout on the Lily yesterday. You can see that right there. And you can see my time, my distance, my calories, my pace. This is in miles. I can tap this here to look at the exact route and zoom in. You can see the slower and faster sections right there, some little interval tests that I did along the way. If I go back up here, I can look at this and see my total paces and all the sort of stats that you'd want for this. It's pretty detailed, a lot more detail than what's on the watch itself or shown on the watch itself. And then down here, I've got my splits. These are the automatic laps that are created every 1 kilometer in this case, or 0.62 miles. And then I've got some of the pace, heart rate, and temperature charts that are shown there. One minor thing to note is that there is no stair tracking on this. So while there's steps and there's sleep tracking and there's all these sort of things, there's no stair tracking. And that's because there is no barometric altimeter. Also, while there is sleep tracking on the device, you won't see your sleep stats there. You have to look afterwards at the data in the mobile app. So if I go to health stats, I go to sleep, I'll go back to yesterday, there we go. See the full sleep stats, you can see right there. These are the sleep stats offered on the mobile app. And this is also where I can see all my other health stats. So I can see respiration rate, I can see heart rate, I can see calories and distance, anything else that you can possibly imagine, you're gonna see it in here, including my fairly scratched up phone. Anyways, hope you found this interesting. If so, go ahead and whack that like button at the bottom there, or hit the subscribe button for plenty more sports technology goodness. With that, have a good one.